Up next, we have the open source e-commerce champion from Lost My Name. His previous experience includes companies like Bonobos and Animoto. He's a father of 4, soon to be more, and is well known as the nicest member of the Solidus core team. Not that he had a whole lot of competition there. His talk's entitled Customizing Solidus at the Model and Controller Levels. So please welcome from Logan, Utah, Jordan Brough.
Okay, thanks, Gregor. So like Gregor said, I work at Lost My Name. And before that, I worked at Bonobos, where we collaborated with Stembolt to fork Spree and give birth to the Solidus project. Before that, I worked at a place called Animoto, where we had our own homegrown e-commerce system with digital goods and subscription services. And before that, various other things that we don't need to get into. But right now, to give you a feel for what we do at Lost My Name, we make these incredible, amazing printed children's books that are customized. So we've got 2 books so far. Our first one is called Lost My Name. It's a personalized book where you tell the name of a child, and then we will create a custom book around their name where the child goes on a journey to find their name. So they wake up and they've lost their name. They're going to go on a journey. They meet an elephant. They get an E. They meet a robot. They get an R. They get an I. They get an N. And at the end of the book, it says Aaron, and they say, "That's my name. Wow." And you have this cool book to give to your kid or any child. And we've got some samples here if you guys want to see it. So I mentioned that I go through this just to let everyone know what we do, and also because we're going to talk about customization. So we have a very customized thing that we do. Everything that we do is about customization, and we have to make changes to Solidus to make that work. So I'm a little more of an optimist than Clark, and I will say that Solidus is amazing. It has issues, and everything he said was true, and there are lots of improvements that we can make, but I think it's just so amazing that we have this project that we all use and that we are processing transactions for, or soon to be processing transactions for, and providing value to people and to our customers, to the world. And so I think that's great. And so I want to take us back to SolidusConf 2014 and play just a 1.5-minute clip from Andy Dunn, who is the CEO of Bonobos, about Solidus, about Spree at the time. And I think it's just a really interesting perspective to hear, because it's coming from the founder of the largest apparel brand ever built on the web in the United States. And he's a businessman with a strong interest in technology, but with no programming background. So we as programmers don't sometimes lose sight of why things like Solidus are important and why customizing them is important.
One of the challenges we've had on the cost side is technology. Technology is expensive. You can either rent a solution from a company that focuses on renting you e-commerce software. Their primary objective is to make a margin on bad software, which is a devastating combination. Or you can take something and do it yourself, an e-commerce platform such as Magento, which isn't everyone's favorite. And you have a stack that then no engineer wants to work in. So you either have a cheap solution that actually you can't do that much with, or you have a hosted solution that's you can spend a bunch of money on it and not have to hire. Either way, you have a problem, which is you don't actually have technology as a flexible lever at a lower cost to actually do good stuff with your e-commerce. And so I've been thinking for years, someone needs to actually build a great e-commerce stack and just make it free. We've had this 6-year problem to solve, which is trying to find a technology team that are actually great software engineers who like their jobs. We could find the software engineers, but they couldn't like their jobs. They liked the company, but their actual work sucked because they're in a bad stack. And Spree has saved the day. And I think we're in the early innings of that.
So like we said, and like Clark talked about, there are things to improve in Solidus, but I think in many, many ways it provides this thing of letting this large market of stores that can't just go on Amazon, they can't just use Shopify, that need to do something special or custom. And so customization is at the heart of this project. We want people who that can be capable developers that'll stay with their companies because they enjoy working with Solidus. So what do we want from Solidus? We want it to take care of the common stuff. We don't want to have to, when we start a project, figure out, do we need line items, do we need promotions, do we need inventory units, do we need all that kind of stuff. We want Solidus to help us get bootstrapped and get moving quickly. But as I've been saying, we also need it to be easy to be different, because that's why we're using Solidus. That's why we're hosting our own solution. So a couple examples. At Bonobos, when I was at Bonobos, they have a really streamlined, I think beautiful front end for the checkout process, single page, really easy to get through, really easy to see. And they've got a really customized returns process. Everything is you have free returns on everything for a year. Every box that they ship has a return label included inside of it. When it comes back, it's automated at our warehouse, and all of this, the front end, the back end, it's all tightly coupled to the core e-commerce functionality, which makes it an advantage to use Solidus. Lost my name. We've got a front end where you have this very interactive, specifying your name, choosing your characters, previewing the book. And then on the back end, it's an on-demand zero inventory store, print houses around the world that we coordinate with. And all of this integrates again closely with the core e-commerce functionality. On the Solidus, this is from the Solidus.io homepage. It says, Solidus is being built for professionally developed, high transaction stores with customized workflows. And so that's all of you, like I said, all of you have unique and interesting things that we're working on, and sometimes it requires being able to control the stack. So I've said it's amazing, and I've said it lets us do all this stuff, so why am I giving this talk? Obviously because there's some things that we can do better. Making customizations more straightforward. Right now, if you want to change something, or in the past at least, if you want to change something in Solidus, you go dive into the code, find where you think might be the right place to change something, and figure out if changing it in the way you're thinking of changing it will do what you want to do, and if it'll break anything else. And that's not a great way for us to do things. We want to be able to provide a stable interface so that if you go choose an extension, if you go write an extension yourself, if you write some application code, we want you to be able to depend on that not breaking as you go along. And talking about interfaces, we should provide some sort of interface at all. Right now, the interface for Solidus, or at least in the past, the interface for Solidus Spree has been all of the code of the whole code base of Spree. You can monkey patch anything. There's not defined interfaces and extension points. And then also making upgrades easy. And I want to talk about this in a little bit. This is super important for the community. So John has said this before recently on Slack, but if you have troubles upgrading from Solidus 1 point whatever to 1 point whatever, let us know, because this is really, really important for keeping people in the community. I'm going to go through. This is kind of a common upgrade flow, how it's been in the past. You start your new store, you get the latest version of Spree Solidus, find some extensions that you need, add some of your own customizations, and then you launch. And everything's going well, you're selling a lot of stuff, and then after a while you get a breather and you realize we should upgrade because there's some new stuff that we want to get out of Spree or Solidus, or we want to upgrade Rails, that sort of thing. And so you perform your first Spree Solidus upgrade. Dun, dun, dun. For anybody that's done that. And then you get bigger, maybe you make it through. Hopefully you make it through. Then you get bigger, you add more developers, more customizations, and then there's nothing after this, because in a lot of cases, you look back and you say, I don't want to do that again. And so we get a lot of the companies that get really big and start having more customers, more interesting things to do. They often will exit the community because it's so hard to upgrade that they take their fork and they go off with their own code base. And we don't want that to happen. We want people to stay in and keep contributing back and keep being able to benefit. So why is this the case? One of the reasons is this right here. So this is from the Spree Commerce docs. It says, All of Spree's business logic can be easily extended. Standard practice for including such changes is to add a decorator file. For example, say you have a method you want to add to the product model, do a class eval, add the method onto this class that you don't own, but you want a method on it, so put it on there. And bonus, by the way, you can do the exact same thing with any method in all of Solidus. So here we go. So another part of the Solidus homepage is we want to get rid of this no more class eval is one of the goals. We don't want you to have to do that. We want you to have defined extension points for safe and simple customization while ensuring smooth upgrades from one version to the next. But I want to take just a second and actually give a pitch in favor of monkey patching before I go on to diss it anymore. I think it's important for us to realize that we are in Ruby, we are Rails. This is the land of monkey patching sometimes. And Ruby is a language that allows you the flexibility to do that sort of thing if you deem it is appropriate. I like this quote from DHH. Oftentimes the best tools and techniques, the ones that make you the most productive, can be sharp things that can cut you. Like one of my favorite features of Ruby, the beloved monkey patching. It's a sharp tool and you can hurt yourself, but oh, what a tool. And so I think that's a great way of stating it. Sometimes it's appropriate and you got to make that call. But we've discovered that the sharp tool is in fact very sharp. And for a framework of our size that we are now, it makes sense to really focus on not doing this class eval thing. So don't do it if you can. Don't do any more class eval, and let us know when you think you have to. I think there's a difference in how you act in your own app and in a framework. And Solidus is a framework, and the framework needs to have more strict ways of going about things. So let's see. So let's look at a few things that we've done in the past. Go through a little bit of code that's in Solidus right now. So we'll start off pointing the fingers at ourselves. We'll look at the Solidus IO set of repositories, not even Solidus contrib, but Solidus IO. And just take a look at some stuff that is here for sometimes good reasons, but these are the things that we want to try to get away from. I don't know if you guys can read that at all, but this is Solidus virtual gift card. Right here we're monkey patching, we're prepending a module onto order. We put in two methods here that are not really something that are being modified, they're just being added to the order. And when we do stuff like that, we run the risk of collisions, for example. You want to have maybe this extension and another extension, and maybe both of them define add the same method, and now you don't know what's going to happen. And also a problem with that is just visibility. In your own application code, you're looking through things and you see a method being called on order and you have no idea where it came from. We should have confidence that if we say order.something, that it's a Solidus method. And then another part here is we're modifying. This one is modifying the finalize method on orders. It does call super, but this now becomes very dependent on finalize being the place where you want to do this thing with your gift cards. It makes it hard for us to re-architect the internals of Solidus if you're inserting code into methods that exist in Solidus. What if we change things around? And for example, this one is the return value of this important? It must not be because we're not returning it. It's easy to make mistakes and to get into a bad place. So here's another one, Solidus avatax. This is class evaluating the tax rate model, and it just completely mutilates the tax rate class. And I wrote this code, so I can be so critical like that. We just take these methods and raise exceptions, return nothing, return a defined thing. And now what happens when you want to use Solidus avatax? You want to use avatax for your US taxes, and you want to use Solidus's tax rates for your European taxes. And now you have big problems because you've just changed how tax rates work globally. Solidus multi-domain. Just an example of grabbing a controller, the taxons controller, and doing some store-specific stuff because it's the multi-domain gem. and then copying some code out of the Solidus repository and pasting it in here, and having some custom return logic and that sort of thing. So, I mean, what happens when another extension decides it also wants to modify the taxons controller? Now, whatever one comes first in your gem file is going to win, perhaps, or last, or whatever it is, who knows. And of course, there's also just the duplicated code that now, if it changes in Solidus, we'll never know. And Solidus Braintree. So Solidus has a problem where right now that I'm actually working on trying to change, where it really wants payment sources to be credit cards always, nothing else. And so the way to get around this was to, when you accept PayPal payments, make them be credit cards. Your PayPal account is a credit card, and we monkey patch credit card so that if it's a credit card that's not a credit card but actually a PayPal account, then the credit card display number is actually an email address, not a credit card number, and throw some other stuff on, and there's other patches. And you know, it was something that was hard to do in another way. And then let's see, do one more here, if this pops up in the right. Here we go, okay. So we've criticized ourselves a bunch, so now I can poke a little fun at this at Spree. So over in Spree land, they have just released this Spree Braintree v0. And this is all stuff in this class that is modifying Spree order. We're adding a whole bunch of PayPal methods. We're doing set billing address, this monstrous method, which is now gone from Solidus, but is still in Spree, has been pretty much copy pasted over here to this monkey patch on order with a couple modifications. And then we do things like, it does things like change the payment required method to do some custom thing, and then copy paste the code from the original Spree repository. And so it goes on and on and on and on. So let's see, can I get out of this? Yes. Okay, so we're all guilty. I showed one of mine there, Avitex. And I've wanted to fix Avitex, and it's been really hard because there just are not places in Solidus that let me hook in to do the things that Avitex needs to do in the way that it needs to do them. So what we want, let's talk about, well, let's see. The couple of reasons are expediency. We need to get a project done. Sometimes monkey patching is the thing you have to do in the short term. And then lack of a better way, not having extension points that we can plug into. So having said all that stuff, let's talk about what are we doing now. And this did not come through at all. But this, if you look in this file, app configuration, in recent versions of Solidus, it used to be just a bunch of preferences like strings, true, false preferences, string values, things like that. We've now got a whole bunch more stuff in there that everyone should take a look at, because this is kind of the way that we're trying to make it possible, one of the ways that we're trying to make it possible to customize Spree Solidus. You can go in and this right here is a preference that you can set on Solidus that says variant pricer class. So we've got a default class in Solidus that figures out what is the price of a variant. And you can swap in your own. And we've got a variant search class for being able to search for variants in the way that you want to. There's a promotion chooser class. So you can say, if there's multiple promotions that are eligible for the same item, how do I choose which one to apply in my cart? There's a default class for doing that, but you can supply your own. And it's very defined. All these things are very defined. We have an interface for this is what this class needs to accept, it's what it needs to return, and we're going to commit to supporting that. And some other ones like around shipping rates, taxing shipping rates, choosing shipping rates, sorting shipping rates, sending out carton emails when you ship a carton, merging two orders together. So look through all this stuff and get familiar with these ways of customizing Solidus. And when you have something that you need to do and you can't without monkey patching, then think about how it might need to go into here and talk about it with us. So here's I want to run through a couple examples of some of the classes that are in here. So, well, let's see, this isn't in here, but this is the payment create class. So that monstrous method I showed you just a minute ago from the Braintree stuff about updating the order. John rewrote a bunch of that stuff and made this non-active record defined interface for how do you create a payment. So you get this payment create class and you initialize it with an order with some attributes and I can't read that, request environment, and you feed that in here, and now we list out instead of just using nested attributes everywhere, we now are going to start listing out what are the attributes that you can pass into these classes to do things like create a payment, create an order, those sorts of things. And behind the scenes, at least at the moment, it still is using nested attributes, but by doing this sort of thing, we can control like the order the attributes get applied. We can move away from nested attributes if we want to, and it's obvious for everyone using this, what do you need to pass in order to do these things. Here's another one. This is from Martin that he's recently worked on pricing. If you need to have different prices in different countries because of things like value-added tax in Europe, or maybe you want to do A/B testing with different prices on your variants, there's a pricer built into Solidus that accepts a variant and calculates a price for it. So this is the thing built into Solidus. And then there's a preference that you can set to use your own. So if you want to have A/B test pricing class or that pricing class or whatever it is you want to have, you can swap in your own in this defined way with an interface that we're committed to and something that will persist across versions. You don't have to worry about monkey patching anything. And here's one that I've been working on. I wanted to try and see if we could improve the PayPal thing, where a PayPal account can be a PayPal account and not just a credit card. So I started taking some work from Martin, actually, starting off with saying we need a concept of a payment source in Solidus that can be anything. Can be a PayPal account, can be a credit card, can be whatever, a check, whatever you want it to be. So we're looking at adding a payment source base class that anything can inherit from if you have different kinds of payments. And then this is what that payment source needs to do, the methods and behaviors it needs to have. And we're committing to this interface so that if you just make your own payment source, whatever it is, and follow this interface, then it should work in Solidus. And as I started working on that sort of thing, I noticed that part of the problem with having different payment sources is that we have sort of a concept of a wallet in Solidus right now. We kind of save your credit cards automatically, and you can see what credit cards are on a user, and so and those sometimes automatically get applied to a new order to make it easier for a user. But it's all totally based around credit cards. So what we did was go through and look at, let's create an explicit wallet interface that can have different types of payment sources. So there's a Spree wallet class with wallet sources, and there's a method for adding a source and a method for removing a source and for getting the default and that kind of stuff. So what we hope is that by doing this sort of thing, we can make it easy for you to put in your own stuff, and for us, we say just follow, call these methods when you want to do stuff. And if we want to refactor these behind the scenes, maybe we will. But you just pay attention to the parameters and return values. Okay. So a couple ways that we've had in the past for changing stuff in Solidus. One of the ways is to monkey patch whatever you need to change. And we've talked about why that makes things hard. And another way is to try to get everything to Solidus core. And that's a bit of what Bonobos kind of did at the beginning of working with Spree and Solidus, is every feature that we wanted to have we tried our hardest to get it into Spree core as quick as we could. And I mean, that's kind of the holy grail, is to get your customizations into Solidus, into Spree, into Solidus. Because once you get it in there, you've got everybody working on Solidus committed to helping you keep it alive. But if you try to do it too quick, it's painful. Because if you get something in there that you've never tried, then it's likely that you've done it wrong. Like we all do things wrong the first time around. But once you get it into Solidus, we're very committed to not changing interfaces, so then you've made it harder on yourself to change this new code that you've written, because you can't change the interfaces as well. So what's better is if you can try it out yourself before trying to get it into Solidus. So some new ideas about customizing and working with Solidus is avoid modifying Solidus models, monkey patching, even putting things in the Spree namespace. Provide your own interfaces when needed. So if you try, again, if you try to do something in Solidus and you say, I just can't do this without monkey patching, then bring it up on Slack, bring it up in the support channel or the general channel and say, I don't think I can do this without terrible hacks, and complain about it and see if anybody has any ideas. And if they do, maybe you got a solution. If they don't, open a GitHub issue. If you can, submit a pull request. But at least let us know about these things, because this is something really important to us, is figuring out what interfaces we need. So help us out to make Solidus more reliable and extensible, and tell us other ideas that you have about how we can make things reliable and extensible. And this I kind of talked about already. Talk about it with us when you want to change something in Solidus. Propose an extension point, try it out yourself, and if everything works out and you think it's common to everybody, let's talk about getting it into Solidus itself. And above everything else, enjoy what you're doing. Like Andy said in that video at the beginning, we want developers for these companies in our community that enjoy working on Solidus. And let us know how we can help you make that happen. And that's all. Any questions?
Yes, slightly other languages, and I'm thinking I'm thinking of Objective-C and JavaScript. One of the patterns used to create these architecture is wrongly referred to as PubSub Architecture. Many different implementations of it. I know there was a kind of a PubSub thing with the Rails thing done in Spree 1.0 sort of bad and people thing. Has anyone looked at that kind of a hook pattern? Specifically for workflows that require events, a sequence of events, in which you might want to hook in somewhere inside of that sequence.
Do any of the other core team members or anybody have comments they want to give on that? John?
I missed part of it.
Yeah, he said one of the patterns used in other languages is PubSub type of architecture. And have we looked at that as one way to, oh yeah.
I'm going to speak before author and give an answer. This is really bad for that. You can get it better in about 30 seconds. For those of you that use Spree a lot and a long time, and I know Jason's one of them, we have ended up in incredibly scary worlds with active record callbacks, with event machine hooks, where our stores become basically non-deterministic. The order at which these things run become impossible to debug. Understanding what's happening when is impossible. Knowing when things will halt transitions, when your state machine will roll back. It's especially tough for us right now with our 3 intertwined state machines. I fear more PubSub models until we first fix the ones that we have and use poorly.
I think I just the same thing. You want to say any more? Nope. Okay. Yep, Clark's right.
And in general, I'd just say, like, if you have an idea of you think, what if we tried this way of doing things? The best way to convince people of that, I think, is to find a problem that needs to be fixed or code that could be made better. Keep it as small as possible and and talk about it or make a pull request. Much easier to have decisions and debates about examples of what you've done. Yeah.
You said you were making an interface to the common actions in Spree that was sort of decoupled from the active record doing all these objects, and you showed like the payment create. So I'm wondering how far along, like kind of general percentage-wise, the common actions are to being converted into text to a model.
So the question is, there's the example of payment create for decoupling our logic from active record, and how far along are we on doing that sort of thing? I don't know if there's a percentage or anything. That was something that is done. The payment create is done and is in Solidus, and I don't know. I don't think we have like a map of we're going to get every single thing into this exact model. So we don't have percentage or anything like that. But it's something that we want to see more people do and get more good examples of in there.
So with these interfaces that you're defining, so people can model their own customizations, is there some consideration? I see with the PRs, there's conversation about what should go in, what into some of the default models. And that, is there consideration for some mechanism to pass around a custom payload as well through that?
Yeah, and some of these things. Martin, do you want to say anything about your pricer stuff, or? Yep.
So some conversation, like for example, one of the PRs that I was looking at a second ago was with regard to your variant pricer, and there was some people asking, oh, it would be good to know the context of the country you're operating in, etc. Or there may be other things like we have a notion of a certain type of another associated record associated with a user, for example, that we might want to pass through. Is there a mechanism that so that when we could have attached, say, to an order or something like that, some custom payload that turn is visible to the model, or
So the way the prices are going to work and can be overridden is that you have a current price options helper or current pricing options helper that you define, and you have a corresponding pricer and pricing options class that sort of work in unison, right? And the pricing options object can be created either from an object or from the view context or from what's the third one? Or from a price. But that's not that important. Like, important is you can do it both in the backend and in the sort of front end context and get the same kind of object that will determine your price.
Yeah, sorry, did I throw something on that? Really important for some of us more than others is I hear the term payload and all I ever think of is unstructured JSON hash blobs that are scary. Why I love the pricer option class as it is now is it is it's an actual message. It's a Ruby message you can pass around. You can expect it to provide a given API. You can inherit it. You can compose it of other things. You can do what you need to with it. And it's the the core team is really striving for reliable, robust interfaces. And we know if we attempt to do things inflexibly without those other super common use cases of also I want to price on roles, we're not going to be successful.
Other questions?
You talk about customizing the models and controllers. One thing Spree had for views was data attributes that were supposed to be hooked for customizations to use with view-based. Do you have any suggestions or plans for improvements there? Particularly the admin UI, because that's the way most people.
No, I don't. That's why I put models and controllers to avoid the views, because I'm not experienced there. But the other guys probably do. John's going to talk about admin. John, are you going to talk about that at all in your talk? A little bit. Okay, yeah. I don't know, so other people probably know better.
I had another question about the state machines. Is there any plan to change those like a pull request issue that's open?
So question is, how are we going to be able to fix the state machines at all, like the order state machine? Yeah, I mean, that's there's some laughter back there. It's something that we really want to do, and it's really hard, and we would love to see some people come up with some great ideas, but it's really at the heart of Solidus. So Clark or John?
Okay, so there are open issues, and we always encourage feedback. I personally have a vendetta against any of the states pre-confirm. Those are the first ones I think we can work on pulling out as an organization. I think we can like add sanity to or clarity to. I think they were so tightly coupled to how the original Spree interface was used of I am now in an address phase, I am now in a shipping phase, and then many reliance was added onto the state machine callback hooks for those states, which were really just view dependent. Those are the low-hanging fruit, but even they are incredibly difficult for us to remove. So there, I think largely Core agrees we can kill the state machines on shipping and payments. My preference would be having those killed as well, because as we have the 3 intertwined state machines now, it's even tougher to understand what's happening. It's even tougher to decouple it. But again, it's tremendous amounts of effort and coordination required to get them yanked.
I'm
Pierre's
told
welcome.
my time is up, so thank you, Clark. Last thing, here's a promo code from Lost My Name for all of you. 25% off Solidus 2016.